Hey guys, let's get more news about Miami Heat, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. With Heat south of .500, Eric Spoelstra acknowledges, the urgency is definitely there. At 6 to 7 amid this 5-day break in their schedule, the Miami Heat find themselves in an all-too-familiar place, chase mode. A year ago, there was the pushback from a 1-4 start. 2 years ago, there was a 5-7 start. And in 2021, there was the mediocrity of a 7-5 open. And when you're dealing with a small margin for error throughout this conference, it's about sustaining whatever your game is. Who can sustain longer and more consistently, Coach Eric Spoelstra said, with his team idle until Sunday's 6 p.m. game against the Dallas Mavericks at Casillas Center. And you watch games, you throw 'em on, there's just these swings back and forth. You get the sense as long as the teams are playing for playoff spots, that any team can win on any given night in either conference. It's great for the league, great for the fans. You love it for the competition part of it. And what you want is it brings out the best in your team. Not, Spoelstra said, that this is necessarily the path of choice, the Heat's record easily having been positioned to be 8-5 if not for allowing a final second putback basket by the Sacramento Kings or Spoelstra's overtime blunder of calling a timeout he did not have in last week's loss to the Detroit Pistons. Such an 8-5 record would have had the Heat at third in the East entering Wednesday. There's urgency there, for sure, Spoelstra said of where his team stands. And if you look at it in both conferences, there's urgency throughout the conferences. And I think there's parity. It brings out great competition. It brings out all these different emotions. You win a game, you feel like everything is great. Then you lose a game, you feel like the world is coming down. Through the season's first 13 games, the Heat had been riding such a roller coaster, yet to stack together more than 2 consecutive victories. That's what competition does, particularly when you're jostling so competitively in the standings, where there's a lot of teams bunched up. A couple of wins can change the feeling of things, Spoelstra said. But the urgency is definitely there. So the perspective at the moment can be of a team that has both won 2 of its last 3, as well as lost 5 of its last 8. The habits that we're building, we feel like are trending in a solid direction, Spoelstra said. And, yes, we would like to turn these habits into wins. Iman Shumpert acknowledges that LeBron James came to Heat as response to Celtics' Big Three. The Boston Celtics were a force in the Eastern Conference in the late 2000s and early 2010s thanks to their star-studded trio of Paul Pierce, Ray Allen and Kevin Garnett. From a 3-season span from the 2007 to 2008 campaign through the 2009 to 10 season, Boston made the NBA Finals twice and won a title in 2008. But the Celtics were no longer the top dogs in the East once LeBron James, Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade joined forces on the Miami Heat in the 2010 offseason. James' former NBA teammate, Iman Shumpert, acknowledged on Wednesday that the 39-year-old took his talents to South Beach as a response to Boston's Big Three. Shumpert made the acknowledgement after he ruffled some feathers by saying that James worsened the NBA when he made it okay for people to team up. Boston's star trio got the better of James' Cleveland Cavaliers in 2 playoff series prior to his decision to leave Cleveland for Miami. The Celtics eliminated Cleveland in 7 games in the second round of the 2008 NBA playoffs. Then, the Cavaliers were sent home by Boston in 6 games in the second round of the 2010 NBA playoffs. The Celtics' Big Three never eliminated James from the playoffs again after he joined the Heat. Boston and Miami faced off in the 2011 NBA playoffs and 2012 NBA playoffs, and the latter came out on top in both series. Starting with the second-round series back in 2011, Boston looked simply outmatched. The Celtics were eliminated in a gentleman's sweep, though in the following year's playoff series, the team gave the Heat more of a run for their money. Boston and Miami met in the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals, and the series spanned 7 games. The Celtics played the Heat as well as any team did in the 2012 NBA playoffs, but Boston was still eliminated after it lost the deciding Game 7 by 13 points. The Big Three in Miami proved to be quite the great response to Boston's trio. The Heat were maybe even partly responsible for breaking up the threesome in Boston, as Allen left the Celtics to sign with Miami not long after the outcome of the 2012 Eastern Conference Finals. Joel Embiid says Jimmy Butler is probably the best player in the league. The Philadelphia 76ers had no answers for Miami Heat star Jimmy Butler, who formerly played for the 76ers, on Monday night. He made his presence felt on both ends of the floor in a game the Heat won by a final score of 106-89 to improve to 6-7 on the campaign. Butler totaled 30 points, 10 rebounds, 5 assists, and a steal on terrific shooting efficiency as well. He shot 8 of 12 on the evening. Conversely, 76ers star Joel Embiid has yet to shake the rust off his game since he made his season debut against the New York Knicks on November 12. Against Butler and company, he scored a season-low 11 points to go along with 8 rebounds and a blocked shot. Not long after the Heat handed the 76ers their 11th loss of the season already, Embiid said that his former teammate Butler is likely the best player in the NBA at the moment. In Embiid's defense, Butler has been as good a playoff performer as arguably any player in the NBA since the start of the decade. Across 64 total playoff games in a Heat uniform, Butler has averaged 24.7 points, 6.8 rebounds, 5.7 assists, and 1.9 steals per game. Furthermore, with Butler as the straw that stirs the drink on the offensive side of the ball for the Heat, Miami has reached 3 Eastern Conference Finals and a pair of NBA Finals. But it's of note that Butler, his scoring explosion against the 76ers notwithstanding, isn't putting the ball through the net at a very frequent rate so far in his 6th season with the Heat, at least by his standards. The 35-year-old is averaging 17.7 points per game, his lowest scoring average with Miami by a wide margin, and has been woefully inefficient from three-point range, as he's shooting 21.4% from deep. Butler will attempt to parlay his 30-point performance against the 76ers into Miami's next game on its regular season schedule, which will come against the Dallas Mavericks on November 24. The Mavericks are the defending Western Conference champions, but own just a .500 record on the season at 7-7. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of Joel Embiid? Leave your opinion in the comments.